Welcome in episode Lucky 13 of the Cougar Digest podcast. I am one of the hosts, Rob Sellers, publisher of Cougar Digest, joined as always by Kevin Digital Dude. How are you doing this afternoon, this evening, Mr. Kevin? As we're recording this Thursday night, the rain is coming, the cold front's coming.
Yep, the cold front's coming. I'm doing good aside from a few things I got going on the personal side, but I'm all right. I'm doing good. I can't complain because no one will care or no one will listen. So let's just say I'm good. And we'll just leave it at that.
There you go. Way to drop the
Yeah.
principles of Dana Holgerson. No one cares, so it doesn't count. I'm sure everyone appreciate you supporting Dana
Yeah.
unrelentingly.
Nothing to see here. Please disperse. Nothing to see. Just keep moving. Yeah.
All
Yeah, that's the
right.
mindset now.
Hey, lucky episode 13. I told you right before we started recording, too. My daughter turns 13 on Monday the 13th. So 13 is it right now. As
Yep.
lucky as that is. But yeah.
We'll make it lucky.
It's been it seems like it's been forever. We've been busy since the last time we recorded. Basketball kicked off Monday. That was poor. Tipped off. Let me say basketball tipped off Monday. I was in the house for that. Really decent crowd for a Monday night game type deal. Not too shabby.
Yeah.
But
I thought so.
You know what I mean? It's tough for a Monday night. And it was what, 6 o'clock tip, no less, wasn't it? So no, it was 7.
It was 7,
Yeah,
but Houston, that people,
right, exactly.
they
It could be 8 and it's still
retired, they
difficult
want to
to
go
get there from
home.
exactly. But no, really
But still a
impressive
good crowd,
performance.
as you mentioned.
I think people kind of knew where I was going to go anyway, but a lot of people anxious to get out and see the new team. 84-31 win over Louisiana Monroe. They pretty much had this one start to finish, obviously, as the score would indicate. Record low in terms of points given up, all the other things that's been talked about this week. But they were impressive. You know what I mean? Seeing some of the new guys, Damian Dunn, obviously, he's a guy that caught attention. A lot of people wanted to see how he was going to do since he had kind of set out the exhibition or whatever. And he came out and didn't hesitate to go ahead and start right off the bat. So people were wondering how he was going to look and was he healthy. And well, I tell you what, he answered that pretty clearly on the first game. 18 points. In the end, he was edged out by Sharp with 20, but those two pretty much for the whole night just sniping and sharpshooters from the outside.
I think Dunn only played like 20 minutes also, so he was efficient in his time on the court as
Very
well. So he wasn't out there a whole game. He was only out there for part of the time because Coach Sampson used a lot of the bench. I think except for just a couple of players.
He was the first one
pretty much had everybody out there on the floor.
Yeah, he got loose first, and then Sharp ended up coming on later in the first half, and then he had a strong second half as well to catch him in terms of points. But Cryer and Francis, 9 each, were after that. I was impressed. I watched Cryer a lot on the defensive end. Obviously, that was one of those guys. Cryer's offense is going to be fine. I'm not even worried about that as he finds his rotation and his fit into the offense. But I was watching him a lot on the defensive end. That was the big question mark with him coming in, and that was the talk of the preseason and him, even a media day talking about how gassed he was and how he knew it was going to be difficult, but he was even still surprised once he got here in terms of the conditioning and stuff that they do. So I was pretty impressed with him. I know I made a few notes during the game of a couple defensive plays he made. So, I mean, considering it was the first game, very, very small sample size, I was pretty impressed with that. But Jamal Shed doing Jamal Shed things, didn't have a ton of points, but 4 steals, 8 assists for the night. Obviously, that's, it doesn't matter what he scores. He's going to have his nice score points.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Jamal Shed, we don't need him out there scoring. We need him out there distributing the ball and taking care of it. Not
on those nights when we do
like that. Yeah, we know that we can rely on him whenever we need it, but with Dunn out there, with Cryer out there, we don't need him to score as much, this year. It's just take care of the ball, don't turn it over, and get it to that guy that's hot, and that's something. And lock down, the player on the other side on the defense. But yeah, Shed knows what he needs to do on this team. He's a leader on this team, and he knows exactly what his role is on it. So I don't have any. There's no concern with me with Shed. at all.
Right.
He's been here for a while. He knows what to do. But like you were saying, seeing how Crier comes out, we've already seen him, a few times in a few games. Dunn, haven't really seen much of him, but as you mentioned, he impressed. He impressed a lot.
Yeah.
And that defense.
Oh,
I think that's what excites a lot of people about this team is how we play defense, and they didn't. They didn't. They did what they were supposed to do out there. They didn't disappoint.
Yeah.
That's the word I was looking for. They didn't disappoint. Yeah. Exciting to see this team. Can't wait for the next game. Yeah. Tugler was in there. Lot got some time.
And there was only two, I guess,
pretty much everybody off the bench.
McFarland and somebody else were the only two that didn't see the court, and I think those two are potential red shirt.
I think, right? Yeah. That's what I'm thinking. McFarland, he'll be a good player, but he's kind of
those are the guys that can use a little bit of development time, though. I think
behind a few big guys. Yeah. It was a good game,
no, it really was. I mean,
this upcoming Saturday.
It was exactly good game to start the season with. They did everything you would expect them to do. They will be a part of the Cougar doubleheader, or what they actually I saw on. I forgot completely about the women's side. I know we won't cover them a ton, but I mentioned before that Coach Huey in the women's media session that I was at. He at least piqued my interest to check them out a couple times this year. The way he was talking about their transition, the style of play that they're going to have, the people they've brought in from the transfer portal. So it's one of those deals. I'm going to check them out a couple times just because. But they opened their season Friday night. Men's basketball is back on the court 12:30 for A&M Corpus Christi, and then of course the men's football, as if there's another one, but men's football will be on Saturday night. Yeah. Let me know if they start one of those teams up. We might expand our coverage, right?
Hey, why not?
I just want to bring the best. I want to bring the best to the people. That's what I'm here for y'all. So
exactly.
But yeah, Cincinnati comes to town. Houston coming off. We talked on the last podcast, the win over Baylor. And good win, big win to get, important win. Sloppy at times, but they did it when they needed to.
It's still the only team with 2 wins, 2 new wins in the Big 12. 2 new teams.
That's true.
2 wins for a new team in the Big 12. We're the only one.
Yep. And so
something to hang your hat on.
Comes to town. They're another team that struggled a little bit, kind of like Houston has. I think all these newbies, so to speak. I know it's been talked a lot on the boards in terms of the new schools and how they're kind of lumped together at the bottom at the moment for the most part. Cincinnati struggled a little bit more than Houston thus far, but of course that could even all out. And if they were to come in here and beat Houston on Saturday night, that would probably spark a bit in terms of them maybe being able to close out strong and maybe even evening up the record by the end of the year, so to speak. So I know they're out of contention for a bowl game. I did see that in terms of they can't reach a bowl game, which is unfortunate for them. But it's kind of to be expected. You know what I mean? Houston hadn't exactly notched it yet either. I know they're looking favorable at the moment, but until you get that 6th win, and I don't think there's, there's 4 new teams. I would assume 2-2 maybe. I don't know where UCF stands. I know they're still in the hunt. They're not eliminated yet, but 2 teams make it and 2 teams don't potentially. Because I know Houston, Central Florida in the last game may be important for that. So
I thought UCF had 3 wins at this point in time. They're 13th in the Big 12.
Okay, and they almost had
which I would assume Cincinnati is underneath them. Yeah. Cincinnati's been competitive in all their games.
They really have.
There hasn't been a game that they haven't been competitive. I think that they've been a 1-score loss in I think just about all their games. So it's not a team that you can just look past. They're going to come out. They're going to they want to win. To as you said, even up that record. So it's not going to be an easy game, I think, by any means.
Yeah.
UCF is overall 4-5.
Yeah, there you go. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So fighting to get to 5 and 5.
This could be a good segue because but since we're talking about Cincinnati football, we are going to have somebody on who
I see
can talk
Keegan's
about
waiting on deck. Why don't we go ahead and get him in here?
They are here. Let's bring him on.
All righty.
What's up, guys?
Hey, how's it going, Keegan?
It's going good. How are you guys?
Doing well.
Doing good.
How do you pronounce your last name, by the way? We were debating that before we came on. It's like Nicholson, but no L. Go ahead and solve it.
That's what everyone says. They put in an L that's not in there. It's Nichoson. It's like Nichoson.
Okay, I got you. That's kind of where I guessed that. But,
Nichoson.
Shockingly, I'm sure you've gotten that in your entire life, right?
Yeah, everything.
Thanks for being the first with that one.
Absolutely.
By the way, Kevin, are you in No Shave November, by the way? I meant to bring this up in the opener. By the way, we're on day 9 of No Shave November. My kids talked me into doing it this year, and I'm telling you, man, it's really starting to itch. I don't know. I might have to shave this off soon, but we're in that itchy stage.
Yeah, I never shave. So this is full time, not just for November.
I know Gatlin, the other guy that's on here.
Yeah, I haven't trimmed it.
That's what I do. I trim. I don't do a true grow it out the whole month. I have to trim it.
Yeah. Oh, I'm absolutely. If I'm going to let it go, I've got to cut the edges and stuff of my neck. Yeah. I can't do the neck beard thing. I'm sorry. Although I was talking to him, my daughter's birthday party's this weekend, and so I'm thinking of ways I might be able to embarrass her. She's turned 13, so she's at that age and her friends are coming. I got to come up with good ways to embarrass her. So
yeah, definitely.
I don't think she wants me to get crazy just yet. I got to save some of the good stuff for later,
right? Yeah.
So, Keegan, thanks for joining us. I know you came on to talk about our personal lives and No Shave November for sure. So
yeah, absolutely. Therapy session.
We're talking Cincinnati football, though. Obviously, we opened up talking a little bit of basketball. Cincinnati won their opener. By the way, I remember looking back, and you guys, as I was communicating with you and the other guys there at Bearcat, then I switched over to your Twitter. You're like literally covering a basketball announcement in the process. I'm thinking, man, I should have looked before I'm messaging these guys, but you guys have been busy up there.
Yeah, it's been a busy season. It's crossover season. This season is not for the faint of heart in this business. There's a lot less sleep. But yeah, they had Tyler McKinley, their power forward, small forward, signed yesterday, local guy at Winton Woods High School. So I went out there, talked with him and his high school coach. Tyler Betsy, 4 or 5 stars, signed yesterday. So it's been a busy season for basketball. And then on top of all that, you have the waiver situation where there could possibly be litigation on Cincinnati's side here in the coming week with Aziz Bandago and Jamil Reynolds. And then you have to cover a football team with a first-year coach who's 2-7, and everyone wants to burn the house down about that.
Oh man, I know your message.
So you're your subs are just as adamant about the team as ours then at this point in time in the year, even though that we have I think a win or two more than you guys overall. But our subs, a lot of them screaming, that they're not happy with it. But I mean, kind of what do you expect to come in and win conference the first year? It is what it is. It's a build up, right? It's a build up. We don't play these games like in the past every week like we're doing now, and it takes time to get used to the schedule and get used to the teams that we're playing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you guys are sitting at 4-5. I think these Cincinnati fans would kill to be 4-5 right now. Still have a sliver of hope for a bowl game. That would also mean that they beat Miami of Ohio, who they hadn't lost to in 18 years. But it's been how the team's lost. And I think Satterfield talks a lot about you're a couple plays away. And wow, that is coach speak. And, you kind of cringe when you hear it. It is true in some of the games. But there is also that connect where, good coaching is going to lead to playmakers making plays. So it's a tough situation, but it's muffed punts, not even muffed punts, just jumping up and try to tip punts. I don't know if you guys were watching that game on Friday night against BYU.
Wow.
And then just throwing, like literally getting a kickoff return and then throwing it to a Baylor defender. And then he walks into the end zone it's plays like that, and then that game is a 6-point game, and that's the difference right there. So
suddenly I feel better about what we've gone through this year, Kevin.
yeah.
But that's rough ones, but not that well.
Yeah,
Rice was their hiccup for the year.
Yeah, and then you have the 6th best rushing offense in the country, and you're 2-7.
Yeah,
I mean, you're rushing for like 220 yards a game. You have one of the better offensive lines. Your defense is supposed to be really good. It's basically just the defensive backfield that's been struggling, but it's been a very, very disjointed season. And Satterfield didn't have a great career at a MAC school before he came here, like a lot of the coaches have, or a great career as a coordinator. So I think that is kind of making it worse to where, a lot of fans are thinking, I don't know if we should expect better, but you have to give the guy 2, 3, 4 years. Let him get his recruits in there. Let him get acclimated. At least give him one full off seasons where he can actually recruit out of the portal the team he wants. Try to mesh with these guys before you like I said earlier, want to burn the entire house down.
Yeah, year 1 was pretty relaxed over here. Of course, that was before the transfer portal. This is year 5 for him. So, it was interesting the first couple of years, but now that the transfer portal is here, I think it came along at the best time for the 4 new schools in terms of being able to quickly elevate to that next level, as opposed to, before the transfer portal, it would have took forever for them to get there. And the NIL and the relaxed scholarship numbers and all that good stuff. You know what I mean? It's one of those that have come along at a great time for those schools that are transitioning. And I mean, it's going on at the other levels as well. There's a ton of new schools hopping into American after Houston and these other 3 left. And so it's a good time in that aspect, but you have to wonder at some point as we watch this continue to go down the tracks and wonder if it's going to get out of control or whatever. So on one hand, it's good. And the other hand, I feel like with the struggling teams, the offseason is going to be interesting in terms of the portal the other way. So
yes, very much.
Careful what you wish for, right?
Yeah. And I said in the, not to spoil anything, but I just sent you the email for the questions, and you asked about the transition. And it's like these teams that have been in the Big 12 for the past couple of decades have been consistently recruiting bigger, faster, stronger than anyone else that's been in the conference. So it's going to take 2-3 years to be able to consistently put that product on the field, play in and play out.
You mentioned that the offensive line.
That's what we try telling people.
Exactly. Yeah. Good luck. I'm sure you repeat yourself a lot as well.
Yes, very much so.
The offensive line you brought up, that they've done a decent job. Obviously, they're doing a good job if Cincinnati is as successful in the run game as they are. Have they struggled in terms of pass protection, or is it just the pass game in general has been rough? Is it, you know what I mean? Is it one of those? Is it the line, or is it elsewhere?
I think there's definitely been some games where they've struggled. There's been some games where you look at it and be like, yes, the offensive line was bad. There's been other games where you say they could have been better in pass protection. I think Emory Jones has struggled this year. He's kind of been one read and then kind of tuck it and run. And then if there's not a running lane there, there's a really high probability he's going to get sacked. And then that's on the offensive line, which they can always block better and give him like as much time as you can possibly get.
Right.
But what Nick Cardwell did with that group, I don't think enough people are talking about. You get a hodgepodge of transfers and you have one returning starter on offense who's your center, Gavin Gerhardt, and then you plot out the 6th best rushing offense. So Cardwell should have a lot of credit for what he's done there. And Luke Kandra, I think, is one of the highest rated guards in the country, according to PFF. So his NFL prospects are going to be really interesting, but I think what they've already said is that whole offensive line group is planning on coming back next year. So if you can bring that group back, that's a really good starting point. As with every team, is the whole game, your success starts at that offensive line. Yep. So if they can come back and know they have that going, that's going to set them up for success.
Surely Emory Jones is done this year, right?
Yes. Yeah. 6 years is all you get.
Dr. Emory Jones.
I don't think there's a COVID year, red shirt year left. I think it's over with.
We'll have to check out where he opens his practice at.
Wow.
So that's impressive. Houston's kind of the opposite. Actually, they've got a couple. I mean, they've got Pat Paul, the left tackle, who's going to be an NFL guy, probably, and he's kind of playing this year and increasing his stock to potentially be a first-day guy. Jack Freeman, like 3-4 year starter in the middle type thing for center, has had a solid year, to be honest with you. I know we've nitpicked on him a little bit here and there, and he's fought some injuries and stuff, but he's fought through it, been really tough. And he's gotten better even this year as the year's gone on. But other than that, it's been a real – you mentioned the hodgepodge of guys that were brought in. They brought in a hodgepodge as well. It just wasn't as successful in terms of piecing it together. So, again, they've gotten better at times. They've held together just enough, but it's one of those things at any week it's going to, it could fall apart. It could be the cost of a game type thing. So the team's progressed some as it's gone on, but once Pat Paul's gone and Jack Freeman's gone, they've got a really good young center that's waiting behind him. But in terms of that, they're going to have to be real successful in the portal this offseason in terms of being able to put together a good offensive line for next year. So that's going to be probably their number one challenge in the offseason, to be honest. And for Cincinnati, and I'm sure there's other schools as well. And you mentioned the other schools, the existing Big 12 members and how they've been recruiting forever at that level, where they've got 1, 2, 3 levels of Big 12 bodies on their lines, and Houston, Cincy, Central Florida, BYU. BYU is probably a little bit better in terms of bodies just because they're a little bit different, but they're fighting to get those Big 12 bodies to get past the first wave. They need to get the second wave, third wave. Like you said, that just comes with time. So while it's helpful to have that portal, it's still going to take a little bit of time for them just to build that up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, what you said about having a successful offseason in the portal, I think you can say that about anyone who's not named Georgia, Alabama, LSU, Ohio State, Michigan. Anyone who's on the fringe, if they want a chance to be in that college football playoff, especially with it going to 12 teams.
Yeah.
I mean, look at a team like Washington. They go and get Michael Penix, who I graduated from Indiana. I covered him for a season. That was one of the worst quarterback showcases I'd seen in a long time. His last year at Indiana. Then he shows up, and now he's probably going to win the Heisman. So it's a mix of being successful, getting the right players, and it's also a mix of you need lightning in a bottle for something to happen. Yeah. Kind of like 2021 for the Bearcats going to the playoff. So many guys at a group of 5 level coming together. 9 draft picks, so many talented guys. But yeah, this is the new age. It's transfer portal or die. And you're seeing a lot of teams that are choosing to die, trying to bring up their own talent and not really hit the portal because they don't want to touch it. And it's hurting them big time.
It's weird. It's almost, again, it's transitioning, and it's like you said, it's year to year, it seems like it's morphing a little bit here and there type thing. And it's difficult to keep up with. As you probably know, the transfer portal guys, they've seen behind the curtain, so to speak. These guys have been through the recruiting process. They're not as eager sometimes to talk as they were when they were coming out of high school and anxious to get that attention. So it makes it fun chasing that a little bit more. Coaches are a little bit, with it being the Wild West in the portal, they're a little, it's tougher sometimes to get the good information that you need. It's, how it is. People get real worried about other people finding out and trying to jump in on the same guys and all that. So it's created a whole new world, so to speak, in terms of covering this team.
Yeah, and I think they'll want to talk if there's something else involved that you're talking about.
Exactly. It's always funny how that works, right?
Yeah. It's not, hey, do you want to talk for this story? They're like, what is there a dollar figure that you're talking about? Or?
Exactly. That's a whole other.
Times have changed, hasn't it?
Yes, very much so.
So obviously Cincinnati coming in, they have a chance to play spoiler, though. I know that they're out of contention for the bowl game, and that's rough. But they do have that opportunity to play spoiler. I know they still have a ton to play for in terms of trying to improve and build for next year and all that. So. What do you think in terms of Saturday night's game as they come in here? What are a couple things you're looking for them to be successful with in order for them to have a chance to beat Houston at home?
I think this game could possibly come down to a redshirt freshman defensive back. Kalen Carroll, he has been playing for Justin Harris the past 2 weeks. Against Oklahoma State, he had some struggles. I think that was the first time he saw consistent action. And then last week against UCF, sorry, that's all running together now. Last week against UCF, he had a pretty solid game. And with how bad the defensive backfield's been for Cincinnati, if they can just be okay, I think the rest of that defense should be able to step up and make some game-changing plays and maybe force Donovan Smith into some mistakes. But if it's going to be business as usual and there's going to be miscommunication in the defensive backfield, defensive pass interference calls, I don't know if you've looked into those rankings, but if UC isn't number one in the amount of defensive pass interference calls they've got in the country, I would be shocked.
Wow.
If he can be good, if he can be serviceable and just not give up multiple 50-yard plays, I think they should have a chance. But it's also going to come down to Emory Jones, because you're expecting the rushing offense to do what they do. Over 200 yards. They've had 2 100-yard rushers in the same game 3 times this season. And they did that last week against UCF, and that's the first time it's happened in school history. So there's some dynamic runners in that running back room. Ryan Montgomery's balanced. He's got explosiveness and power. Corey Kiner's a power guy. You'll see him get chased down if he breaks through the line and through the linebackers. But then Miles Montgomery is just flash of lightning down the sideline. He's gone if he can make somebody miss. So it'll come down to Emory Jones. If he can play mistake-free football, and if they can have a good game plan for him to just sling it around, get him in motion, so he can pick apart the defense, I think that'd be good. If he can play confidently, as we've seen him do this season, I think UC might be in a good spot. But it's like I said before, it all comes down to the defensive backfield, and they haven't really given UC fans a reason to believe there's going to be much progress in that area. So I expect Houston to win. I think it's going to be a 31-20 score. I think Donovan Smith will probably have a pretty big game and continue momentum towards that bowl eligibility.
Well, weather on Saturday might be a little bit of a factor. It is
going to
expected to be raining.
It's supposed to be raining and cold.
Wow, okay.
Well, rainy and cold for us, which is probably in the.
So we don't know how that's going to change things.
Yeah, I guess that has to work in UC's favor if they're gonna pound
rushing,
the run game.
I would have to say it would. And it's interesting the way you describe the team. It really is just these teams are so similar. It feels like, you know what I mean. Same issues. The defensive backfield has struggled. They've had some good work up front. The interior D line is really strong. Now that Nelson Caesar's back on the edge, he's their best edge rusher. He came back last week and had 2.5 sacks in his first game back in a couple. So. That's good in terms of their defensive line, but after that they've been playing the 3-3 more since the Texas game because just personnel wise it's easier for them to do. But it's hit or miss in terms of can they be effective on defense. Early on against Baylor they were pretty effective, and then in the second half as they kind of wore down a little bit they started giving up more. But similar though, it's funny the way you describe the team over there. It seems, and it makes sense. You know what I mean? Both of these teams are still trying to, they're trying to take this big step up, and it's going to take a little bit of time. But it is same thing. Donovan Smith's had some really good games, but he's had some weird mistakes at times too. So now he's been a lot better as of late as the season's gone on. Again, he's really improved, and this is his first year to be a whole year starter. So. Credit where it's due, they have improved as the season's gone on. And it went from a few weeks ago, people really didn't think they'd probably even have a shot at making a bowl. And, how hot is the seat getting over there for the head coach type thing. And then they've won a couple now. The bowl game is within reach this year. And that was kind of heading into the season. That's what everyone said. And, the AD, Chris Pesman, went on saying that was the expectations for the year, saying a bowl game. So, it's within reach, and it's crazy how a few weeks and a little bit improved, more consistency on the football field has changed the view of where it's at. So
yeah, and I think I was talking with Chad about this. It might have been Scott Springer, the Cincinnati Enquirer writer, but it's funny that the AD will say, the expectation is a bowl game. Everyone talks about, get to 6-6, get to a bowl game. Then you get to a bowl game, and there's 15 players who have already entered the portal.
Oh, exactly. There you
playing
go.
true freshmen. People who want to go to the draft aren't playing. And it's like, who's playing right now? Who are these guys? I didn't even know they were on the team. So it's literally just about being able to say you went to a bowl. It's not about what you did in the bowl game, which
That's a great point, especially in this day and age.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, wow. Who was the Debbie Downer last week, Kevin? I don't know. Oh, it was a couple weeks ago. You were talking about the schedule or something. And I was like, man. But, yeah, as I sit there thinking about
really, I'm going to get the Debbie Downer treatment after that.
As I think about as after Keegan said that,
I thought it was just me being real.
Yeah, no,
I'll take the Debbie Downer label.
If Houston makes it to a bowl game, yeah, I mean,
I'm just
Pat Paul's going to not play probably.
I'm just being real.
No, it was real.
You know, that's the thing, right? Like Well, I try to keep it real, you know. All right, Keegan, you know, I've always liked Cincinnati. I've always liked playing Cincinnati. You know, Houston and Cincinnati have been tied to the hip for a while now, you know.
Yeah.
And I've always liked them. And again, you know, we talk about a lot of the similarities. You know, and I think it's just a matter of time before basketball comes back around for Cincinnati also.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as far as the football team this year has gone, they've been competitive in just about every game, you know, that they've lost. Is it just a snake bite? Is it just a play here and there? I mean, what has been the issue? Has it been just consistent? Has it been a consistent issue? Has it been inconsistent? Is it just something different every game? What's been their issue with that? And where they've been able to be competitive, but just haven't been able to close it out?
Well, I'll give Oklahoma State and Iowa State credit to where those games were not close whatsoever. Ollie Gordon did whatever he wanted to that to that defense in that rainy game.
Yeah,
a couple weeks ago, and then Iowa State was truly one of the worst games I've seen Cincinnati play since probably Tommy Tuberville was the head coach.
Oh, wow.
So those were two really poor games. The rest of them, it's like you said, it's come down to a couple plays. You know, Emory Jones goes and drives down the field, brings the game to one score against BYU. Defense gets a stop after, I think, giving up 2 straight scores, maybe 3 straight scores. So they have all the momentum, and then Braden Smith punt bounces in front of him. He tries to jump up and tips it. There was no way it was possible that he'd get the ball. BYU recovers, scores, game's pretty much over. And then UCF
hate losing that way too. God.
Yeah, because if you feel like you had it right there, you feel like you have
get blown out.
But it literally feels like the football gods will not allow you to win a game. It feels like you have no chance
Frustrating.
to win a game. And then UCF this past week, you know, you're in some big spots, and you get your starting safety ejected because he makes contact with an official. And then your backup quarterback comes in, makes a 50-yard completion to Xavier Henderson. Ball gets punched out. They would have been right outside the red zone. UCF gets the ball, scores. The craziest one was Emory Jones completing a catch to Braden Smith on the 2-yard line. And then they get to the line, and they immediately jump offside or false start, back them up 5 yards, and then they only get a field goal. So and then they lose by 2 because they can't get a 2-point conversion. So it's truly like it's bonehead mistakes.
Yeah.
Scott Satterfield is a really, really laid back guy. And he's a really, really nice dude, but he was pissed off in the press conference after that game. And he came in Tuesday at media availability saying we had a team meeting Sunday and it was heated. Everyone was pissed off. And there was a comment after the game Saturday. He said, I just told him after the game, he said, we're going to work with whoever shows up in the locker room on Sunday. That's who we're going to continue to work with on this discipline stuff. Then he gets there Tuesday at media availability and says, well, everyone showed up, so that was a positive. It's like, so you were legitimately thinking that there were going to be some guys that weren't going to show up.
Great.
Yeah, so when you're 2-7, you have a lot of leftover guys. They're Cincinnati natives. They committed to this team under Luke Fickell, and they feel like there's some sort of disconnect because Fickell and Satterfield are 2 very different guys. Yeah. So I think there's going to be a good amount of portal departures this year. And I think it could be for the best just because there's personalities that aren't jiving right now. Yeah. And I think Satterfield needs a full offseason to be able to recruit personalities and ability, not just ability, if you know you might not be able to control some of the personalities in the locker room.
Is it similar, Keegan, for Cincinnati? I know Houston, they've always had a good opportunity to get skill guys, but offensive and defensive linemen is where they struggle the most. Is it similar there, I would assume, in terms of that's their toughest, specifically Houston in offensive tackles? It's just you're fighting the big dogs for them, and even in the portal, the best tackles go to the best programs, and it feels like it's just – has Cincinnati done a better job over the years of getting guys in and just finding those diamonds in the rough and developing? Because Pat Paul, like he wasn't very good and wasn't recruited very heavily coming out of high school here in the Houston area, but he's developed well. And so that's where Houston's had the most successes, where they've been able to find a under the radar guy like that and develop him. But is that similar how Cincinnati's done it?
Absolutely. And I think in terms of offensive line, they've had James Hudson is the guy that comes to mind. I think he was a 3rd-round pick to the Browns 2 years ago. That was the year after they lost to Georgia in the Peach Bowl off the 54-yard field goal in 2020.
Yeah.
Other than that, the offensive line, it hasn't seen a ton of draft picks. I think you got to go back a few years to, I think the other one, it was, I can't remember who it was. I don't even know why I'm trying to think of who it was. On the defensive side, that's where you talk about, you find diamonds in the rough and develop them. Cincinnati's had a really, really good strength program. They had one under Luke Fickell, and it's really progressed under Nico Palazetti, an Ohio State guy. Finally has all the reins. He's leading the strength program as the strength coach. But they got a guy like Dante Corleone who came in.
Oh yeah,
and he was huge. I think he might have been 350 pounds. They slim him down. They put a bunch of muscle on him, and now he's just a massive guy. Probably going to be a 2nd or 3rd round pick if he declares this year. I think it's still up in the air whether he'll come back or not. Jawan Briggs was a mid to high 4-star committed to Virginia out of Cincinnati from Walnut Hills High School. And then I think he spent 1 or 2 years there, came back to Cincinnati, and now he's right next to Corleone on the offensive line. And again, just a massive dude. I think he has 3 kids already, and he's in his senior year of college. So that's a really interesting story. I think
like a BYU player.
They were trying to get him a diaper NIL deal, but I don't think anything ever.
See, hey, exactly. You got to make the most of these things.
That's creative.
Yeah,
diapers are expensive.
That's very creative, though.
Yeah, yeah. And then Darian Beavers was a UConn transfer who was one of the most important pieces of that 2021 playoff run team. He gets drafted by the Giants. Myjai Sanders is a tall, lanky guy. Another important piece of that 21 playoff team, got drafted by the Cardinals. So it's really been guys where you guys know this, but you get commitments and some of them are like, okay, he's a 3-star from some high school. It's fine. He'd have to develop to come out. And then those same guys are who you end up like forming your team around, and they're fan favorites, just guys that develop, and they hit the weight room every day. They're focused and committed. Kobe Bryant, current Seattle Seahawks corner. He was a 2-star recruit out of high school. You don't even hear about 2-stars playing Division I football. Desmond Ritter's only other offer was Morehead State, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
He's an NFL quarterback.
What was Sauce coming out? What was Sauce out of high school?
3. I think he was a mid 3, 84, 85. That
whole group of players from that playoff team.
Crazy.
How in the world Cincinnati was able to get, again, this was pre-portal, and that's how they got him and held on to him. But, you would have to worry about that collection of talent in this current, you know what I mean? As soon as the offseason and people in their ears and money and this and that, NIL. So, man, that was impressive that year. Obviously, I know Houston went up there and lost in the championship game, but that was one of those everybody was vicariously living through Cincinnati, at least all those American teams, right? Trying to live through the underdog world.
And then all 3 of us just go, okay, that was fun. Bye.
Yeah, see y'all later. We're going to Big 12.
Absolutely.
Was an easy decision.
It'll be interesting. We'll see how it goes. Cincinnati basketball, they won their first game already. Yeah,
So
easy one out of the gate.
You're going to get me on a tangent here. They have the 2 big men waivers, 2 7-footers.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
So they can't play. And University of Illinois Chicago scored in the paint whenever they wanted to. And it's a glaring issue already of what these teams are going to be able to do down low to Cincinnati if they don't get those waivers. It's going to be a case where if you want to be competitive, you're going to have to be perfect defending the 3 and perfect rebounding. You're going to have to kill guys on the boards, which obviously height and size helps that, which they're struggling
how
with
2 7-footers will do that for you, right?
Yeah, that would definitely help. But they have veteran guys like Seamus Lukosius and CJ Frederick. Seamus struggled against UIC, but Frederick hit 3 of 4 threes, had 11 points. Both their point guards, that game was their first Division I game they'd played. Day Thomas is a JUCO transfer. Jizzle James, a 4-star freshman, obviously the son of Edgerrin James Jr., the Colts Hall of Fame running back. So that's going to be another interesting thing. But Day Thomas looked like he played great, and Jizzle James showed flashes of being a true difference maker. He had some really good moves, made some good shots. So this year, if they had gotten the 2 waivers, was going to be a prove it year for Wes Miller because it was going to be his most talented roster, most complete roster by far. If they don't get those 2, it could be a tough first year in the Big 12, and they're going to have to figure out, okay, if they don't get their waivers, if their appeals aren't overturned, are they coming back next year? Can we kind of run it back with the same team, or is he going to have to completely reshape the roster again? So in terms of that, it's going to be very interesting. I don't love having to cover waivers because I feel like my job is there's just so much coming at me already. But I think the litigation thing, if that's a possibility, that's going to be really, really interesting. And if it can turn out like Tez Walker, it could. But, it's the NCAA is very, very confusing on what they want to do. And they're incapable of being understood at the moment.
Is there even a time frame though?
That's not a new thing. That's not a new thing for the NCAA.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Do they even have like a rough time frame?
I would say the end of this week. If it's not in by the end of this week, I'd be surprised. Right? So they filed their appeals the Friday of Big 12 Media Days for basketball. That's when they were due. So I think the end of this week lines up of the typical timing. But Wes had a 2-minute and 30-second rant after the presser, after the UIC game about it, where he was like fidgeting with papers on the table, fidgeting with his microphone. He was doing everything he could not to like scream at the top of his lungs, just trying to keep it all in. And he said, he basically said, like, what are we waiting for? We're waiting on these appeals. I don't know what we're waiting for. He's like, 7 guidelines. They complete all 7. They need to be playing. But I would just love Houston fans to be able to see these guys play against their team, because I think it would make for a super entertaining game. They're two very explosive guys, very talented guys. And the Houston and Cincinnati rivalry, when both those teams are good, that was some of my favorite basketball I ever watched. Those AAC championship games. So I really, really want them two to be eligible as just a fan of basketball in general. And I think it could be a really interesting year for UC, and Wes Miller could prove a lot of people wrong.
True. Well, Keegan, I really appreciated you making some time for us tonight. We picked your brain about as much as we could, and you obviously very insightful, so I appreciate that. We'll have to once it gets closer to the basketball stuff, once Big 12 play gets going, all that, maybe we'll get you back on here type thing before one of those matchups, and just to catch up a little bit and all that good stuff. So tell everybody, if you would, obviously you're with Bearcat Journal on the 247 network. That's the obvious one, but tell everybody where else they can find your stuff at so they can tune in this week.
Yeah, just on Twitter at Nichoson42. So it's my first initial, last name 42. Obviously, I'm on there a lot. That's kind of where I do all my work, and it's been a blast. I'm in my first year on the beat, and being able to cover the Big 12 has been a huge blessing. And just being able to come on shows like what you guys have. I've done this 3 or 4 times with other teams, and the passions of the fan base in the Big 12 is completely different than what it was in the AAC. So it makes my job a lot more fun, and it makes my job exists basically. So it's
And
been
it's
a
fun
tough
too when
lesson.
you make that step up and you're covering even a little bit better recruits type thing too. You know what I
Yes.
mean? As a
Yes.
it's that's fun. It's always nice covering some of the stars too.
Absolutely, I agree.
All right. Well, Keegan, I can't thank you enough for giving us some time. You'll also see Keegan's work behind enemy lines. We'll have that out Friday as well, probably. Thanks again, Keegan, and we'll catch up with you soon, man.
All right. Thank you, guys. I'll see you later.
Thanks, Keegan.
There you have it. So, Kevin,
All right.
that was good.
I was gonna get his thoughts.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I was
What?
gonna get his thoughts about. It's not a college game, but there's another Houston-Cincinnati matchup this weekend also.
Oh man, I forgot all about that. Up to the
Texans playing the
Bengals.
Bengals. Yeah,
I wonder. He grew up in Indiana. He said,
Um,
or he graduated from Indiana. I wonder if he's a Bengals fan or not.
Oh, he's in the city, so
That was a good one.
he's got to pay attention to them at least a little bit, you know?
Right, for sure, right?
But yeah, Cincinnati has a really, really solid team this year. Joe
They
Burrow's
do,
is
and
playing
Houston.
some really good ball.
Houston's trying to
Houston's
make some noise
looking,
One
and they will. You know, they're
Tank
still
Dell
figuring
doing
things
pretty
out.
well over there.
Oh yeah,
And a former Ohio State guy.
couple touchdowns last week.
Yeah, CJ Stroud up there from Ohio State from that same neck of the woods. So
Yeah,
interesting.
there's connections.
A lot of crossover there, huh?
Yeah.
Well, Houston, Cincinnati, it's on this week.
That's right.
Pro, college, whatever.
All right, so let's give our thoughts on the game this upcoming weekend.
All right. Obviously, the weather's going to, I think, if it's still going to be rainy, which it seems like it's going to be, I don't think it's going to be cold enough that be a big deal. But with it being potentially rainy, I think that's going. What's that?
I think the high is going to be in the 50s, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be cool. It's not like it's going to be freezing, but
yeah.
I think the weather actually probably might even play a little bit more in Cincinnati's hand. I think Houston's going to come out on this one. I really do. But I think it's going to be another close game, unfortunately. I know fans probably don't want to hear that. They're tired of these knuckle biters or these whatever, fingernail biters, whatever I'm trying to say.
That's all we play is close games.
Yeah, I think they're done. They're done with all this stress and the cardiac coup, so to speak. So I see it being close again, unfortunately. I think it's going to be a lot of running. And I don't know if that plays into Houston's hand. If it does, I mean, it's not like you can't throw the ball or nothing like that. Don't get me wrong. Just I think with Houston or with Cincinnati having such a strong rushing attack, they're going to want to lean on that for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's going to be. I don't know if it's going to be a run-heavy game. I do see us pulling it out just because I think that we're still just riding this wave, and we're getting better in certain areas. You know, with still a lot of work to do. I think our run game could be better this week, but I don't know about that defensive line, and just with Houston. With Cincinnati's defensive line, I don't know how much you can run against that defensive line. But with Houston, it's again just which team is going to show up. Is the K-State game, team going to show up, or is it going to be the Texas, team that showed up? Which again should have won that game. I won't say Baylor, but Houston and Cincinnati, I still think they're pretty close as far as comparisons goes. As far as the two teams, but I'm with you. I do think that Houston pulls it out. I'm gonna guess it's gonna be probably a run game for the most part. But again, we just don't know which team's gonna show up. We'll just have to wait and see. But I do see I do see Houston pulling this one out.
Houston gets Manjack back this week. No answer yet on Golden. It'll just depend on what no structural damage, but it's just going to depend on how sore or whatever it's been. So having Caesar back obviously helps. Everybody in the middle healthy on the defensive line. I think it's going to be Houston. I just I don't know. Unfortunately, I would like to be pleasantly surprised and to be a nice breeze game that doesn't have a lot of stress to it, but we'll see. I'll believe it when I see it, so to speak. So
good luck with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, all right, man. Anything else you want to touch on before we wrap it up?
No, nothing else, man. Tired of
Nice
looking at
smooth,
how my
nice
camera's
smooth
working. Yeah.
episode this time. So
Yeah, really
like
smooth.
we've
You
done
know,
this a few
kind
times
of
now.
good all the way through. Yeah, I think you're getting better at this.
I hope so. I would hope so after 13 of them.
Right? Lucky number 13.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, before we get out of here, everybody, make sure you like, subscribe, share, tell your friends, family, co-workers, whatever. Help us in any way possible. Swing by the site. Check us out on the site. We always have new stuff flowing through over there. So, yeah, make sure and check us out.
All right. And hopefully we'll see everybody Saturday at the games.
Yeah, we'll see you guys Saturday. I mentioned it last episode. My daughter's birthday is Saturday. I will not be at the basketball game. I will either be at the football game or I will have to watch it from the house. But we'll see how timing plays out and all that. Either way, we'll have full coverage of it, both the basketball and the football game. So, check us out on the site.
It'll be a fun
see
weekend.
you guys on Saturday.